What's up everyone, Sam here. I'm with Ben, who's a great friend, pre and postnatal specialist, owns a company, runs a company called London's Fitness Mamas, and today he's gonna take us through maybe some basic breathing mechanics, things to be conscious of when we start first working out, maybe if you're 3, 6, 12 months postpartum and you're kind of new to exercise.
Essentially what normally happens with returning to training postpartum is everyone rushes back first and foremost, which is not ideal. Normally what happens is you get the 6-week check off and everyone goes, right, ready to go, I've had my 6-week check and I can go train. That's not normally the case. The pelvic floor, you're probably looking at around 3 months minimum. Running can take anywhere between 3 to 6 months to get back to where you were previously. So it is essential, what I normally recommend to all clients is they go see a women's health physio first. They will be able to do an internal check, make sure everything's functioning as it should and working as it needs to basically. And then try and obviously work through your Kegels. Now with regards to the Kegels, normally what you get told is just squeeze like you're trying to hold in a wee. That normally isn't enough. So when you get round to training again, as soon as you take a side lunge, the pelvic floor isn't used to that, and then that's when you can have leaking and incontinence. So normally what you want to do, the better way to try and work it is try and hold in wind. So you're squeezing as if you're trying to hold in a wee and wind at the same time, because then you're getting all aspects of the pelvic floor, So then you're trying to get all aspects of it working. But then that way it ensures that you're getting the whole pelvic floor, and you then want to incorporate that with your training. So if you imagine you're doing a squat, you squat down, breathe in, taking as much air as you can in, breathe in on the way down. As you come up, breathe out as far as you can. So you want to try and really fully exhale, empty the lungs, because you've essentially got a piston between the pelvic floor and the diaphragm. So when you breathe in, diaphragm pushes down and stretches the pelvic floor. When you breathe out, it pulls the pelvic floor up, and that's when you can get that contraction as well. So obviously as you do the squat, breathe in, brace the core, stand up, breathe out, and then squeeze the pelvic floor. So try and squeeze and contract, like say, holding in a wee, holding in wind as you get to the top of the move. And then you start adding that into other movements as well. So that's quite a key one to kind of get in there to begin with. Regarding the breathing, there's a lot of muscles that get quite tight. So obviously with the pregnancy, as the bump grows, the shoulders will come forward. If I go that way. So bump will grow, shoulders will come forward, and you get that little tilt in the pelvis, so you kind of come into that position. Now what that would do, now what will normally happen with that is the chest will come round, so the pecs get very tight, and also the quads will get very tight, and the hamstrings and glutes will get very weak. So the idea is stretch out the quads, stretch out the chest, strengthen the upper back, basically all down the posterior chain. That will be the good one to do. So mobility wise, just obviously you can either do foam rolling, if you've got the massage stick, there we go. Boom. Yep, on that. So foam roll on the quads. So that'll be the main one down on the floor, going through there. Now with that, just make sure you're rolling up the body. So going that way, that's it. Yep, so the roller goes towards the heart. So essentially trying to push all the blood upwards. With that as well, if you've got a little massage stick or rolling pin, that will work as well, because you can just essentially roll up rather than obviously if you can't get down into that position. So it could be here. You can do that way, yeah, definitely do that way. That works as well. That definitely works. Yeah, 100%. But yeah, and then again, if you can try and go across, around, so you're doing the whole of the quad, that worked really well. Regarding the chest, TRX will be brilliant. I don't know if I'm going to fit in on there. So just having the arms in there, just walk forward as far as you can till you get the stretch across the chest, walk back, and then palms forward, and again just walk through until you get the opening out of the chest on there as well. Yeah, door frame works really, really well. Yeah, same thing, forearm, just obviously make sure elbow in line with the shoulder and step into that. And then if you do the arms on the top of the door frame as well, you can work that as well.
So I guess you could also hang away a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But you're talking about this one, right?
Yes, yeah, and then just and then walk forward through that. So essentially shoulder blades are getting squeezed down and then chest getting opened out. Diastasis, big one. So obviously the gap in between the core. Essentially you've got the abdominal wall. Now, as the bump grows, the abdominal muscles will get stretched out like that. The issue we have is some people will have diastasis, they'll have the gap before they're pregnant. But you never check. You don't check because it's not a thing that you just think to check. So a lot of people will already have a gap there. It may be a centimetre or two, it may be a finger or two, because they do it based on fingers. That may already be there. So normally some people, when they return to fitness, they'll say, I want to close the gap and it needs to be like that, but that may not be your normal.
Sure.
So the normal may be that you've got a finger or 2 finger gap, but it's essentially about the tension.
Yeah.
So the gap will close by itself normally. There are things you can do to improve that. So obviously, like I say, mobility, the stretches on there that we've gone through, the quads, getting all the muscles strengthened. Also trying to keep the obliques, it's a tough one because you need to strengthen the core and also try and keep the obliques loose as well, but you don't want to do too much rotation work. So there's a bit of a killer on that, trying to get the mix, so it's happy. But essentially what you don't want is the doming. So I don't know if you can see from there, but essentially as you do the move, you'll get, no one wants to see that. When you get the doming, so if I can go like that, the core will kind of come through like that. So the tension, the gap, the little white bit, so if you see on my top, the white gap, that won't be strong enough. So that essentially is like a little sheet and that needs to be strong. So when you do your test for the diastasis, you lie down on the knees. Do you want to demo?
Yeah,
go on. So lie down, flat on the back, knees in, and then from there, so all you'll do is you just lift the chest forward slightly and then you'll get that gap there. So you see you've got a finger gap, but there's no give. Now what can happen is when you push, it will go straight through. Right. And that's that weakness in the tissue in between the 2 abdominal walls. So that's the important bit, making sure that's strong, not the gap. The gap is important, you want it under 2 fingers ideally, but if you've got a 2 finger gap, it's the tension and the push down that's the important bit.
Yeah, so I've definitely got a finger.
Yeah. But that's what I mean, no one checks. No, like guys get it, guys get diastasis as well, but no one thinks to check, because obviously it's the big thing for pregnancy. Everyone gets panicked because that happens and then all of a sudden you go back after 6 weeks. Yeah, of course. So yeah, for strengthening that, if you do want to do that, Pallof presses, brilliant. So if you want to chuck that on there. Essentially you want to do any isolation work where you're getting the core to tighten up. So yeah, just from there, so just straight out, straight in front, and then bring it back into the chest without allowing the hips and the chest to rotate through. So nice and easy. Yeah, no, you want to essentially just be staying face on, hand stay bang in line with the middle of the chest as you go in and out. So that's a nice easy one people can do at home. Obviously you just tie it around. No, it's not easy, no, but it's one that you can do. You can just tie it around there. Another good one which we do as well, if I just take that off. Now this requires someone to do it with you. Jump in.
Oh, hello.
I know. It's probably not going to be strong enough. So if you stand sideways, face me. So from there, essentially what happens is that goes around the back of the hips. You'll get someone here pulling, and I'm going to pull. You breathe out and embrace the core. So just tighten, just so I'm not obviously pulling you forward. So like I say, not too much resistance on this, but you breathe out, embrace the core, good. And try not to let me pull. And then what you can start doing when you want to improve that is you start pulling at different angles. So you work it down here, you can work it up here, and just kind of pull all over. So the core's getting used to having to stabilize and you're keeping the tummy tight. So through there, obviously everything stays facing forward. Now this one you need to do with someone else. You can't obviously tie it around anything and do it yourself, but it's a brilliant one to be working on. Any other areas?
That's it, I think.
I've gone through quite a lot of it as well.
For the very first time, right?
Yes.
Something they could do maybe before they enter a workout, like for the very first time, or not, like just to almost like, I don't mean activate, but just
like mobility wise. Or
like, apart from the quads and that, it's just literally like you say foam roll in specific parts and jump into a warm up. So warm up's quite progressive anyway.
Yes.
So we go through mobility, we go through like I say activation draws and such, right? So is it literally a case of then maybe coming in a few minutes before and just maybe foam rolling, whatever? Yeah,
foam roll. Connection breath is also a good one. So with that, again, if you want to jump down.
Yeah, so connection
I'll
breath.
Go for it.
So before a workout, right?
Yeah.
You can come in, foam roll.
Yes.
Chest
loosen that out. Now, with regards to this, is a bit of a tough one because basically you need to check. So if you just lie completely flat, you can bring the knees up if you want, it's up to you, but wherever you feel comfortable. Now, with regards to the breathing, what normally happens, obviously, as the bump grows, the chest comes round and a lot of the muscles kind of get cramped and shortened because they're just accommodating the bump, so they're not in their natural position. Now, after you give birth, they're not getting loosened out, so breathing can become a real issue. Now, normally what happens is you either get chest breathing, so the chest will just go up and down, or you'll get tummy breathing, where the tummy comes up. What you want is synergy between the two, so they're both kind of coming up, chest rises out and the tummy comes out as well, and then back down. Now, with this, you want to try and get the breath essentially filling all the way down, because the deeper the breath is, the more the diaphragm will push down into the pelvic floor. Sure. Now, when you're doing this as well, again, you may need a coach to help you with this. But if you just relax, so what I want you to do is you're going to try and send the breath into here. So deep breath in and try and fill down to the back. So essentially you want to try and get the whole of the tummy expanding and taking the breath. So you try and send it to the lower back, so it's coming down into there.
So and like really breathing.
Yes, essentially, yeah. So this is quite a nice one. And then what you can do with this is you can link it with your pelvic floor work as well. So take your deep breath in, breathe out as far as you can. That's it, and then get the squeeze on the pelvic floor as well at the very end. It's tough. But that will be a good one to do as well, because then that will just kind of get you used to opening out the chest, expanding the chest and the tummy, linking that with the pelvic floor so everything's firing through properly as well.
How many reps?
Up to you, completely, minimum 20, but they can do as many as they want. Do it throughout the day, constantly. Say, normally we try and get people doing it in the morning and night, afternoon. So it's easy just doing it when you're in your bed. Just when you wake up in the morning, do your deep breaths, focus on the breathe in, do the pelvic floor squeeze, and when you go to bed. But obviously the more you do, the better. So it's going to help out.
Perfect. Amazing. Hope it's helped. Cheers, Ben.
No problem. You're welcome.
See you soon.